Case 623 by Danny Yu. 32557038. 32557038. 32557038 SART. 32557038 SART. 32557038 SART. 32557038 SART. 32557038 Sarge. 32557038 Sarge. 32557038 Sarge. 32557038 Sarge. 32557038 Sergeant. 32557038 Sergeant. 32557038 Sergeant. 32557038 Sergeant. 32557038 Sergeant. But 32557038 Sergeant. 32557038 Sergeant Bart. 32557038 Sergeant Bart. 32557038 Sergeant Bart. 32557038 Sergeant Barnes. Tony was in Japan to cut the ridiculously large red and gold ribbon for another arc reactor power plant when Jarvis told him about the assassination of Nick Fury. Instead of returning to his hotel room as he had initially planned, Tony headed straight towards the airport and his personal jet, heart pounding in his chest. Mickey pressed against his legs, almost making him stumble, but he slowed down even as he ground his teeth at the delay. He dug his fingers into Mickey's thick, soft fur, let her solid heat and nearness calm him down as his pace grew more measured and his pulse slowed and he could think again. Jamie wasn't in Washington, Tony reminded himself. Jamie might not be right here where Tony could see and hear and feel him, but he was in New York City in Stark Tower, safe behind all its built-in defenses, with Bruce Banner right there to watch over him. Jamie was safe. Jamie was safe. Still, D.C. was not that far from NYC, all things considered. Disconcertingly close, actually, and the old pirate was dead. What did that even mean? Tony had always been at least halfway certain that Nick Fury was some kind of immortal asshole just hanging around for all eternity to torment random poor souls who got his attention. At least this current version of it. Vaguely, as if from far away, Tony remembered someone so very different. Remembered the young black man with the impressive afro and expressive dark eyes who had taken his hand when Howard or Aunt Peggy had brought him to S.H.I.E.L.D. long, long ago and then forgotten all about him. He remembered disassembling electronics on the floor of that young man's cubicle and getting candies and pets on his head when he had been no older than Jamie. The part of him that wasn't trying to convince him it was all in his imagination, fabricated memories of some kind, hurt like someone had torn him to pieces, not like it had when his mother or Jarvis and Anna or Uncle Danny had died, but something oddly close to it. And his rational mind was backing it up, telling him something was underfoot, something dangerous, and he had to be there, had to make sure his baby boy was all right. He was somewhere over Scandinavia when all of a sudden Jarvis alerted him to a call from Nat, who was in D.C. Tony was about to begin asking questions when a voice filtered through. "Tell me about Zola's algorithm," someone was saying. Steve, Tony realized a moment later. That was Steve's voice. Tony didn't offer Nat a greeting. In fact, this would go down in history, he thought, as the most one-sided phone call he'd ever taken the passive part in. He hoped she appreciated it. "Never heard of it," someone else said. Tony recognized the voice, if only vaguely. Definitely someone he met before. Tony turned off the microphone in his phone. "Jarvis," he said, "run vocal patterns recognition." "On it, sir," Jarvis said. "What were you doing on the Lumerian star?" Steve asked. "What's the Lumerian star?" Tony asked Jarvis. "What's Steve got to do with it, and who else is associated with it?" Jarvis didn't need to confirm. Tony already knew he was racking his service to find the answer. "I was throwing up," the other person answered, voice growing shakier now. "I get seasick." A pause, then. "Is this little game meant to insinuate you're going to throw me off the roof? Because that's really not your style, Rogers." Another pause, and then, "You're right," Steve said. "It's not. It's hers." And fuck knows Tony did not want to know what Natasha was doing right now aside from putting him on speakerphone. He had enough fucking nightmares to last him a lifetime, and he did not need fuel for more of them. Someone screamed. "Hey, what about that girl from accounting?" Natasha was saying. "Laura." "Lillian," Steve interjected. "Lip piercing, right?" "Yeah," Natasha agreed. She's cute. Farkle, since when was Natasha trying to set up Steve, and why hadn't Tony been told about it? He might be utterly unable to find himself a suitable date these days, but he did still have the info to get someone like Steve Rogers a nice lady experience. That, and he'd just like to have been let in on what would undoubtedly be a hilarious disaster. Yeah, Steve said somewhat more firmly now, and what the fuck was all this? Some kind of fucked up Natasha-style phone prank? I'm not ready for that, Steve concluded. The scream, which had faded before, somehow started right back up. Then there was the sound of human flesh hitting a solid surface, and the steady scream disappeared to make way for yelps and moans. Then there was something that sounded distinctly like a pair of feet hitting a concrete surface from above, and something mechanical Tony could almost but not quite place. Zola's algorithm is a program, the same voice from before said, only now it was truly distressed, crackling with fear, for choosing Inside's targets. What targets? Steve asked. You, the other voice said. A TV anchor in Cairo, the Secretary of State, a high school valedictorian in Iowa City, Bruce Banner, Stephen Strange, James Stark, anyone who's a threat to Hydra, now or in the future. The future, Steve said. How could it know? But honestly, Tony didn't need to hear anything else. Given the right program, how could it not? These days, every damn thing was online, everything necessary to read an individual's past and predict their future. Bruce was obvious. Stephen Strange... Tony may not know the man personally, but he knew of him, and from what he could tell, the idiot was following exactly the same pattern Tony had before Afghanistan. Given the right trigger, he might very well react the same way Tony had. It wasn't that a kicker. Not only was Hydra of all fucking things still alive and active, but apparently Tony had now become some kind of pattern they shaped their profiles after. And then there was the most important name on that list. James Stark. Part of Tony was halfway to a panic attack and a few hours stay in La La Land, but with his solid grip on Mickey, he somehow managed to keep a hold of himself. What kind of idiot would go after Jamie for a straight-up assassination rather than Tony? What could they possibly get out of that? How in the world could Jamie ever possibly be worth more dead than alive to anyone? And why prioritize his death above Tony's? Jarvis, he heard himself say, as if from far away, words heard through an odd kind of fog. Analyze all of that, and put the Howard defenses on red alert. Send a transcript of all this to Bruce. Yes, sir, Jarvis said. The voice you wanted identified belongs to Agent Jasper Sipwell of S.H.I.E.L.D. The Lemurian Star is a ship that was held hostage by pirates a few days ago, but was freed by a S.H.I.E.L.D. strike team. I'll look further into the S.H.I.E.L.D. files on the incident. Tony let out a breath. Good boy, he said, even as his mind began to go into overdrive, trying to figure it all out, make up for all the variables. They were firmly over the Atlantic when Jarvis interrupted their ongoing analysis. I should add that there's something pertinent running in the news. Show it to me, baby. Tony said, and just like that, the DC skirmish reached his screens. Tony let Mickey jump into his lap, even though she was too large and heavy for it, really, and wrapped his arms around her, eyes trained on the TV. Her paws rested on his shoulders, and he could feel her heart skittering against his own chest, and he stayed calm as he watched the pictures flashing across the screen. There was Steve and Natasha and some unknown dude who was clearly on their side, and there were soldiers going up against them, so many of them. And there was one who caught Tony's attention. He was familiar somehow, but Tony couldn't place him. Empty gray eyes pierced through the screen. A metal arm captured his attention, and why hadn't he gotten on top of the prosthetics ideas he had years ago, so like this? And that broad frame somehow called to him in some strange, screwed up way he couldn't explain. It was way too long since he'd gotten laid, and fuck did that feel like a bad thought right now. He shook all that off, combed his fingers through Mickey's fur, watched the screen through a filter of calmness he couldn't have managed even just a few months ago. Tony forced himself to get some kind of perspective on the whole situation. A wrecked car on a highway, individual battles blossoming out from that one starting point. Steve and Nat had been trying to flee. No, fuck that. Knowing them, they'd been trying to accomplish something, but these people... Hydra, what the fuck? Had cut their transport off. Jarvis, you got anything for me? Tony asked. Not quite yet, sir, Jarvis said. Tony watched breathlessly as Natasha somersaulted and ran across a bridge, the news cover streaming alongside Jarvis's continuous addition of local surveillance cameras, cell phones, whatever else you could get at. A car exploded. Nat jumped. Tony clutched Mickey so tightly he was half afraid he would crush her. She licked his cheek as though to assure him that she was just fine. Then Jarvis showed another frame of Natasha getting away in one piece, and Tony damn near licked Mickey in return. Then everything happened a hell of a lot faster than Tony could keep up with without the HUD and its analytical abilities there to assist him. "Jarv," Tony said, "Fury's dead. Apparently Arnim Zola is still alive, or was until very recently. The world is an even more fucked up place than we thought. Active hydranol. I need your perspective on this as soon as you can get it." "Still processing, sir," Jarvis said. "Sir," Jarvis said then, and Tony felt his breath catch in his throat when SHIELD personnel showed up to arrest Steve, Nat, and the guy who'd somehow stolen Tony's discontinued Falcon wings. "Look up Falcon Thief," Tony told Jarvis, watching impotently, torn somewhere between disbelief, impotence, and rage as the trio was pulled into armored vehicles and taken away. "What is happening here? I really want to know." "Samuel Wilson, sir," Jarvis said a moment later. "Falcon Thief, Sergeant, former Air Force pararescue, one of the subjects of the Exo-Falcon project. Currently working as a counselor for the DC chapters of the Veterans Association, specializing in PTSD. "Send his personnel files to my phone," Tony said, "and figure out how he's mixed up in all of this. Track Rogers and Romanov if you can. And give me—" "Sir," Jarvis said, and Tony shut up immediately. Jarvis never interrupted him, not unless it was a matter of life or death. If Jarvis was interrupting him, Tony could not afford to ignore him. "Yes, sweetheart," Tony said. "Maria Hill is sending through a number of files in raw coding," Jarvis said. "She says she needs new programming for the targeting blades of the new helicarriers. The rest of the information is in the file she's transferring. Right now, she is, and I quote, busy saving Avenger as and cannot answer anyone's calls." Tony was caught somewhere between a sigh of relief and an eye roll of annoyance. "Put the coding and the new parameters up on the screen, Jarvis," Tony said, and he was almost grateful at the sequence of ones and zeros that suddenly took up the whole of his view. He breathed a sigh of strange relief, carefully put Mickey back down on the floor. He buried one hand in soft warm fur, kept himself grounded through that. Mickey let out a gentle bark. Tony flashed her a grin, then turned his attention to the ones and zeros in front of him. He took in the instructions more quickly than he normally would have, tried to avoid seeing that young Fury's face before his eyes as he processed without questioning, took in the mission without objections, completely against his own nature, but that asshole, whoever he had been, had mentioned Jamie, and whatever it took to keep him safe, Tony would do, no questions asked. It wasn't hard work reconfiguring and reprogramming the targeting blades and sending the codes off to Hill. Tony could only hope that was enough. He was half an hour out from New York when the helicarriers shot each other out of the sky and right into the Triskelion, and all the SHIELD files blew up on the internet. "Jarvis!" Tony began. "Begin extracting agents! Right the fuck now!"